Don't talk not a word. That's what I whispered with my hand over his mouth, while thunder shook the windows and the chandelier trembled like it was afraid of the truth spilling into that room. And if you think that sounds dramatic, yeah, that happened. My name is Lena Brooks. I'm 26, black. The kind of thin that comes from long shifts and late rent, and I clean for the Kincaid family on Rainier Ridge, where the lake looks like money on a calm day and like judgment when it storms, and that night it was all judgment. Thomas Kincaid was in his study with a mountain of contracts, the kind of papers that move companies and crush people, and I stepped in fast, pressed my palm over his mouth, and said it as calm as I could manage. Do not speak, someone is listening, not in here, out there. And I felt him tense like a spring, because a woman like me touching a man like him is a felony in the court of appearances, you know what I mean. Then the doorway filled with silk and ice. Victoria Kincaid, in a pomegranate dress, heels ticking like a clock that belonged to her. And behind her, Mr. Dalton, the head steward, with that face people wear when they think the story finally proves what they always believed about you. And in 3 heartbeats, I was the intruder, the attacker, the help who forgot her place. They didn't fire me too easy. They kept me on the grounds. Under watch jobs doubled, phone-locked letters going nowhere, and every time Mr. Dalton said, "House rules," it sounded like a polite way to say cage and still. I worked and watched and saved pieces of truth, like a squirrel stashing Winter a paint-splattered shoebox under my bed, with shaky phone photos and pencil notes, and copied clauses that smelled like first-year contracts, when I thought merit was a ladder, not a ceiling. I kept seeing signatures that looked right at first glance, then wrong. When you remembered a man's own hand has a rhythm. I saw a living will update that would snap shut if a certain checklist got triggered. I saw a name keep showing up in the margins. Peter Crane, attorney with perfect teeth, the kind of man who laughs in boardrooms and never laughs with the staff. And I tried to tell Thomas the soft way a folded note on his desk, a whispered 2 minutes by the terrace, a word at breakfast, while Victoria micromanaged flowers. But every time I reached for a moment, Mr. Dalton appeared, clearing his throat like a moral alarm, and Victoria smiled that smile that means I will decide what is real here, and I could feel time running its fingers through this house like it was choosing where to strike. The storm that started it came back with company wind and rain, and that furnace glow the sky gets right before it breaks, and I was on the floor scrubbing a vein in the marble that wouldn't lift when I heard Silk in the doorway to my tiny room, Victoria saying, "Open," like she was granting mercy, then not waiting, flipping my mattress like a tablecloth, and finding the shoebox wrapped in an old shirt. And when I said, "Put it down," she smiled bigger and meaner. So we grabbed at it together, the lid popped. The pages fanned, and her face did that thing where pretty falls off and the bones tell the truth. She recognized enough to feel cornered and proud all at once, and pride talks. Let me tell you, it whispers when people are listening, and it shouts when it thinks it owns the room. And she bragged that Crane had written the clauses, that the new trust would hand her control if a friendly doctor ticked a few boxes, that grief greases signatures, that the board would never challenge a widow wearing the right shade of black. And I don't know if I hit the alarm on purpose or if my elbow met fate by agreement. But the button landed under my bone, the house wailed, and suddenly we had an audience. Staff dripping from the rain, kitchen hands still in aprons, Mr. Dalton clutching order like a rosary, and Thomas blinking at the mess like a man who lost the script but recognizes the stage. Victoria threw the first line. She found everything she's trying to ruin us. And the room went quiet in that heavy way where every breath counts. So I knelt and lifted a page with hands that had stopped shaking and looked Thomas in the eye like I had something worth saying. and I walked him through it slow and plain. No theatrics. This signature is traced. This clause ties authority to a 72-hour incapacitation metric. This doctor is Crane's golf buddy. This shipment lands tomorrow with a sedation protocol that completes a checklist. And if you sign tonight, the trap shuts tomorrow. And I watched belief leave his face in pieces. The eyes first, then the jaw, then the shoulders. Like the suit got heavier, Mr. Dalton squinted at a page and muttered, "Looks wrong," like the idea itself offended him, and that crack was enough for daylight to squeeze through. Thomas didn't throw anything, didn't shout. He walked to the emergency phone and called the police in a voice that made my knees weak because it finally matched the truth. And when the officers came soaked and serious, they didn't buy the pretty story. They followed it to Crane at a hotel with a suitcase of paperwork that looked like mine, only crisp and expensive, which is just another way of saying labeled evidence. After the noise, the house felt like an empty theater. The staff's eyes slid or softened. Victoria tried the tearful script, but it slipped, and Thomas, he called me to the study, like a man ready to use his own voice, asked why I would risk everything when he hadn't exactly given me a life anyone envies, and I told him the only answer I had. Because conscience is a muscle, and mine refuses to atrophy because he hired me when he didn't have to, and it wasn't charity. It was a yes that paid for my mother's rent and kept my sister in school, and I don't forget a yes when so many doors say no. He nodded like a memory just found him, like he could finally hear how easy it is for people like him to change a life, and how rare it is for them to notice. And then the headlines rolled the way headlines roll when money bleeds. Wealthy wife questioned trusted attorney, arrested board performs emergency hygiene. And in the middle of all that, a foundation called with a scholarship, like a bridge back to the version of me I promised a younger me I would not abandon. On my last night, I set the empty shoebox on his desk, and he told me to keep it as a souvenir, and I said no thanks. I'm done hiding evidence in cardboard. I want my life to be the evidence instead. And he actually laughed, the good kind, not the cocktail kind. Here's the twist everyone expects. You think the win is the image of Victoria in cuffs, and sure, there was satisfaction. I'm not a saint. But the real win was quieter. Thomas started learning his own email, asking real questions in meetings that made expensive watches twitch, not outsourcing his conscience to people who invoice by the hour. And me, I sat in a classroom again, with a notebook full of underlines older than some kids, and hungrier than all, and when the professor said, "Contracts are promises you can hold in your hand," I wrote in the margin, "And they're also promises you refuse to sign when they're designed to erase you." I still think about that first night in the study, my palm on his mouth, the storm trying to get in, and I ask myself if I crossed a line or drew one where none existed. If I had waited, would he be standing at all, or would a checklist and a signature have done what greed planned? And sometimes I wonder if a woman like me doing what I did is wrong only because of who I am, touching who he is, you know what I mean? People ask if I'd do it again, and I say yes, though I wish I'd had time to choose a gentler version. But life doesn't always give you polite options. It gives you a door with a lock and a house that teaches you how to pick it. So here it is, plain. Silence can be a shield when you aim it, and a weapon when someone else holds it against you. Mine saved a life because I bent it toward purpose. Then I broke it wide open, when sirens gave me a chorus. And if that makes you uncomfortable, good, because comfort keeps bad stories breathing. If you've made it this far, tell me in the comments where the line is for you. Was I wrong the second my hand covered his mouth, or was I right the moment the truth hit the light? Do you think appearances should decide guilt when facts are still walking to the room? Have you seen a place, a school, an office, a neighborhood where optics beat evidence until someone refused to hush? Yeah. Drop that story, argue with me, tell me if loyalty belongs to people or to what's true, and if this hit a nerve, share it with the one person who needs a reason to push back, because the next time someone whispers, "Don't talk," I want us to know exactly when to stay quiet.